Good afternoon, and welcome to this Sunday evening's edition of your favorite Sunday afternoon program, Sunday Settie. I am your host, Sion Marshall. Thank you so much for joining. Uh, we didn't have one last week. As a matter of fact, we haven't had a Sunday Settie for a little while, and there are reasons for that. And we can discuss some of those reasons as we get into the program. But it's always a pleasure to bring this program live to you in your homes on a Sunday. The idea is for this program to be engaging, to be informative, to be educational, but at the same time entertaining, so that during the course of 2 hours, you can learn while you laugh. As always, we have with us our brother and friend of our show. You know him as Richard, Dr. Byron-Cox. I know him as Rich. So let's enter Rich into the studio and say good evening to Richard. Rich, good evening. Welcome to
Eh,
the City, brother.
the Marshal himself. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. It's good to see you. I see you dressed in royal colors today, so we probably have to raise the title to King Marshal. I don't know. King Sion, I suppose. How are you doing? How are you
Well,
doing? How are you?
I am well, Richard. It's hold on a second. My great cause, my wonderful favorite cause, um Tika just messaged me uh, on 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 my WhatsApp because just to inquire certain things and so forth. So I just had to respond to her. Um, but I'm good, Richard. As you know, because we talk regularly, I'm in the midst of my final set of exams that go until the middle of the first week in January. So I've already had two assessments. I have other assessments coming up during this month and next month, as well as a final paper that also is due within the first week of January. So there's a lot of things happening right now. I've been very, very busy. I don't know if you followed, but during the week I had an invitation to attend the inaugural lecture of one of my professors at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, Scotland. So I flew up to Scotland on Wednesday evening, and I had two events on Thursday, as well as also recording the interview that I did with him. So I recorded the interview mid morning. Then there was a launch of a book, and he gave me a copy of that book, a launch of a book that he did mid afternoon for about an hour and a half, and then later on in the evening from 6, he had his inaugural lecture, and he didn't just invite me to to listen to his lecture, but he also asked that I offer some comments at the end of it after he spoke. So that was something I was honored to participate in. My Professor Francesco Sindico, is an environmental law expert. As a matter of fact, starting tomorrow in The Hague, he will be one of the lawyers representing or making presentation on the advisory opinion, and that's starting tomorrow in The Hague for about 2 weeks, I believe. So very much involved in environmental law, someone who gave me a taste for climate change litigation, an inspiration, as it were, and I was really honored to be a part of his lecture. So lots of things are happening, and I also make the time to do these programs, which I must tell you are not as easy as they are because you have to generate content, and I must admit that over the last couple of weeks or even months, as the pressure of school, of university, of law school, took its toll, I've not been able to prepare the type of content I would love to prepare for both programs. So I really appreciate the fact, Richard, that you come and you sit with me on a Sunday for 2 hours, and you help to make this program what it is, ensuring that there's proper content and information for individuals to tap into. But outside of that, things are good. I'm alive and I'm well, and I am doing my best to just uh, see this thing through and then see what happens after that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as you are aware, the old people used to say nothing good come easy. I remember remember that remark, that cliche that says something good to community. Yeah, well, glad to see that things are moving along. You're almost, well, you're within touching distance of the tape now as regards your
Yes,
studies,
yes, yes.
you know, so just keep that going, and all should be well. I would just like to acknowledge that we have Coach Mason on the line and Josette Sergeant Brown.
And my cousin
Please
Shijab
share with
Thomas.
everybody else and let them know that we are on, and it's a fantastic
Which,
program. I want to welcome everybody across the globe who's looking at this, wherever you are, whether you're in St. Vincent, you're in England, or anywhere else, the United States, Canada, be. Please feel welcome, and please invite others to join us. As Sienna said earlier, this is an interactive program. So while we don't have telephones, if you have a question or comment on the issues that we shall be discussing, you're free to ask us that question. If we don't know, we would look it up and get back to and share with you what we think about the particular issue that you raise. Now, as I said before, we welcome everyone, and we ask that you this with others. Let us know that you're on the line so that we can say hello. And if you have a question, yeah, raise it up. Now, you have been involved in so many things, going up to Scotland, lectures, interviews, and all of that sort of stuff. It your life is probably a microcosm of what is happening in the world in terms of all of these things, from war in Lebanon and Gaza to war with Ukraine, to the American elections that just finished, where Trump beat the hell out of everybody, and outside of that, the developments in our own region. Home. I say all of that to say this,
well,
that
you missed one thing, Richard, in your overview, the quote unquote disappointment coming out of COP29 in Baku. Clearly, many of the negotiators, especially those from small island development states and developing countries, were not happy with some of the outcomes and the general attitude of developed countries towards this existential crisis that the world is facing, that is affecting small islands like ours disproportionately. So I mean, there's so many different things happening, as I said, and you didn't mention that one, but although I know you're fully apprised of it, but
well,
so many things are happening.
precisely the thing with that, and in my general sweep earlier,
Go ahead, 1 second.
the truth of the matter is that it seems to me, my conclusion is that the so-called developed world, the so-called global north, came to play games, and the ridiculous paltry sum of money that they offered was rejected as out of hand, completely out of hand, by the global south, as we now know. Exchange all the time, from third world to developing countries to even. So now we're now the global south. But the truth is that um, the so-called developed global north and their friends came not to do serious business, and even the paltry sum which was offered finally. There are two things I can say about that. One, and the negotiations proved me to be right, is that they only raised that sum to that level after the uproar that their original indignance to the global south caused. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I'm absolutely certain in my own mind, based on history, based on evidence, that they cannot deliver that amount of money. It is never going to happen. And for us to believe otherwise is to be is to fall into the Caribbean people would say, a promise being a comfort to a fool.
To a fool.
That the the so-called global north and the so-called developed countries are not taking seriously at all. As far as I'm concerned, as far as they're concerned, we are not suffering from it, and we don't give a damn. You know what I mean? The Caribbean in particular, and I'm pretty happy that you did mention it, because the stats that we have, I don't follow it as closely. It was my professional duty, it was my job to know every single thing as regards these things. But the stats as we have them up to this point shows that the region that suffers the most from climate change in the whole world, including the Pacific, is the Caribbean. We take the strongest blow from this thing than anybody else. So in their mind, it is not an existential crisis for them, and therefore it's not an existential crisis. You understand? Once it doesn't threaten them, or once it is perceived by them, because it does threaten them. But once it's perceived by them not to be threatening them, then they don't give a damn, you know. And the Caribbeans now have to understand a different approach to dealing with this in many ways. For example, while
Richard, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't want us to start with COP, because I want us to start with COP when we go to the, although it has to do with us specifically. I think I wanted us to start at home, go to the region, then go wider. And yes, as we go wider, we'll come back home, because we'll talk about the significance of the COP to the Caribbean and how the Caribbean needs to approach its negotiations. Because remember, one of the things that we talked about when we were discussing the whole issue of the Donald Trump victory is how is ways the Caribbean can come together and unify its voice to make it stronger. We see the impact of negotiating through AOSIS, the Alliance of Small Island States, doing a fantastic job. And I think CARICOM could take a page out of AOSIS' book and look to unify its position in a number of areas. So we could talk about that. But I don't want us to get there yet, because those are a bunch of things that I want us to talk about in its global context, Richard. Because, like, for example, you were talking about not perceiving the threat of climate change. But when you look at what has happened in Florida and other states over the last couple of years, you can't tell me climate change is threatening the states and it's existential. So we'll come to that. But let me start at home. And so first of all, Richard, uh, we haven't spoken about this directly, but you had your launch in Barbados. I followed that. I see you had a good presentation. You had the assistance from Dr. Scott, and some of the questions and so forth. How would you characterize that launch um, in Barbados? And if you look back at the trajectory, how would you look at the effort at getting Pauline Bramble global? How would you say it's been going so far?
well, firstly, I think I begin with what objective is that this book and this work is recognized for contribution to global literature across the globe. Um, so far, as you know, the book came out at the end of August, and so far I have been making um, um, efforts to ensure that we get onto the road of making that. Barbados was one of those. Barbados was excellent, even except in one way, and I don't blame anybody or anything of that sort. But the actual launch of the book, when uh, which was at UE itself. Uh, 90% of the audience who promised to show up did not show up, and I was disappointed. I was very, very disappointed in that, and I must say so because that's how I feel. But I did not. I am not discouraged, and I did not despair. I only became disappointed, but not this. I wasn't. I didn't despair, and I wasn't discouraged. I think it teaches us. It teaches me many lessons. Some of them I had known, and so it just reinforced those things. But outside of the attendance at the actual launch of the book, I think I can say that I am rather satisfied. I do intend to visit Barbados again because I'm not done there yet. As you said, Dr. Cleve Scott was very instrumental, extremely instrumental in helping me with this very, very, very good job done by him and our common friend, Anthony Denny. He played a crucial role. As a matter of fact, he was the one who connected me to Dr. Scott. Now, finally, let me say this: that it's not. I understand. You understand it as well because we have discussed not necessarily this, but things of this nature that there are always going to be challenges. There are always going to be difficulty, And I want to use this platform again. Those people who have read this book, you have read it and you know what it says. You have read the comments about it. You have not just Caribbean connections. You have African connections. You have American like Coach Joe and Josette and Mr. Bernard Smith, I see here. Good evening to you, sir. Right? It is not, you would not be, they cannot be disappointed. It is not me who say it's an excellently written work. It's a masterpiece in literature. It's not me. And for this thing to go forward, I know this part of it I cannot do alone. The writing part, yes, that is easy. And I can do that all by myself. Motion of this work and making this work reach where it is supposed to be is an effort that I really do need the help of everyone. If I may see, and people might see this as some sort of vanity or I don't know, but it's not about Richard. This work is much, much bigger than Richard. This work is about St. Vincent and the Grenadines' contribution to world culture and world literature. It is the Prime Minister of our country who always talk about the magnificent Vincentian component to our Caribbean civilization. And this is part of it, So thanks for asking about it and thanks for making the plugs for me always as regards this. I want to thank Scott especially, and I want to thank Mr. Denny. But yeah, it was good in Barbados.
Fantastic, fantastic. Over the week, Richard, I noticed something about you personally that I'm going to comment on, and some individuals may not know this, but the first time you got actively involved in a political campaign was 2010. I, at the time, was assisting David Brown with his campaign. You came on the trail, and one of the stops, you actually took the mic and spoke. Before that, you had never gotten that involved in a political campaign because you've never publicly endorsed any party per se. This year, you were seen at the ULP's National Council, and from one indication, you spoke there. And you followed that up by attending the ULP's convention. Even though you're not a member of the ULP, you are clearly showing an affinity to the ULP. Can you explain why that is?
Well, just as a mild correction, firstly, I did not attend I went to National Council, but I was not at the convention.
Okay.
Now,
correct.
In very simple terms, all of us must choose what is right, not necessarily for me individually only, but what is right for the country. And we have a choice. We have two choices, right? We have a choice between two major parties, between the NDP and the ULP. And the evidence is in front of all of us. I'm a student of science, a student of social and natural science. And I can assure you, I'm seeing, you can make up your own opinions, but you can't make up your own facts. You understand?
Right.
And any intelligent person must not judge things based on what they want them to be, but based on what they are. You understand?
True.
These are things that we must really and truly understand. The fact remains this, that whether you like this or not, the ULP is not the better party to run the country right now, the only party in the country. For us, to make the mistake and vote the NDP into power is to put this country back at least years. You know, you talked about my launch in Barbados. Incidentally, most people don't know I'm actually born Barbadian. That is, I am Barbadian by birth. So when I get to that country and I present my passport, extension passport, you understand? The first thing and the only thing the immigration officer said to me is welcome home. That's the only thing they ever said to me. Yeah. From the time they put the passport into the system and they see Bajan come up, you understand? All they say is welcome home, nothing else. You don't ask me no question where I'm going, we're going to sleep by, no question like that. Because I am born there. But you know, I went there and I saw. I have been to Barbados many times. I spent a lot of time, many times. But I saw for the first real time in my life, it showed me not just what Ralph Gonsalves has done over 23 plus years. You know what it showed me? The hole he had to dig St. Vincent out of. He's still digging out of that hole as I speak. And that is a fact. You understand? Barbados is about 50 years ahead of St. Vincent, if not more, you know. That is real. You understand? Now, had in St. Vincent between 1984 and 2001 is what you call the Middle Ages as regards European history. Ralph brought about something called the Renaissance. You understand? The rebirth, you understand, of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. What you had was political gangsterism, economic gangsterism, social gangsterism in the country. And I could back up every single one of those words with facts. You understand what I'm saying, right? And it would be mad of me. It would be mad of me to look at those facts and say that I'm concerned about these things. One, myself. Two, my children. Three, my family. Four, my community. Five, my nation. And six, the Caribbean region as a whole. And ultimately the world, and vote the NDP in the power. This would be madness. This would be madness. Look, CN, whether or not I'm comfortable with it, whether or not I appreciate Gonsalves or not, as a student of science, CN, what do I have to look at first and foremost?
The facts.
FACT. What I have to look at, and based upon the facts, right? I cannot remain silent. I cannot sit on the fence. I have to make a choice, and I have chosen. And I have chosen based on the facts. I hope that answers the question, but that is
It
what
does. It does answer the question. Thank you so much. Now, by the way, I was just looking at my phone and smiling appreciatively, Richard, because a number of my family members have logged on. My sisters, Gemma and Jill, who are always on, and one of my nieces as well on, and they're commenting how fantastic I look, how amazing I look, because I've lost a lot of weight. And as you know, Richard, that was by design because I came here and I was very overweight and it was affecting my health. And I decided I need to get the weight. And by the way, folk, I'm going to tell you this flat out. It's not personal business, but I've lost in excess of 40 pounds.
Jesus Christ. I'm sorry for the
I
language.
have.
Oh my God.
So when my family members logged on and started commenting about how fantastic I look and so forth, I felt good and I smiled because I feel good. I must say.
I envy you. I must.
Well,
I don't.
I've given you.
I don't
Listen,
usually
I
envy
have
people
given
because
you. I have given you the recipe, but you don't study me, so that's all right.
no, you know, I don't usually envy people, as you know. I'm not in that kind of stuff because you know what envy can do to people, right?
Yes,
It can make you
yes,
bitter.
yes,
You
yes,
understand?
yes. Bitter and so forth. Yes, you know, could have
Right?
attacked my family and so forth.
You know. But
Now,
yeah, it's good
now,
that
Rich,
that you feel great and that your health is improving and so on. I mean,
my health has significantly improved. Absolutely,
right, and that
absolutely.
that must always be welcome. That must always be
Yeah,
welcome.
yeah, yeah. Simple things. Simple things. Listen, and I'm not digressing, but for people who are watching this thing, I am a massive, massive proponent of good diet. We are what we eat, and if you eat properly, you can actually heal yourself and so forth. I know for years I had difficulties going upstairs because my knee would hurt going upstairs. Walking normally, no problem, but the minute I started to climb stairs, my knees would hurt so bad. When I got here, there are two flights of stairs at my last school, three flights of stairs at my last school, and I had to hold on to the railing to go up those stairs. My knees would hurt just going upstairs. Now I don't have a problem. I run upstairs now. Simple strolls, standing too long, my back would get so tight because of the weight I had. Don't have that problem. So listen, I can tell you something. Exercise is good, but believe you me, without an adjustment in your diet, you're wasting time. You could do like Richard and walk 500 miles. He came here and walk hours and hours and hours, and he's still losing the weight. Diet. Anyhow,
Okay, don't let out the secret. All right, don't let out the secret.
another story. Okay. Now, Richard, what if anything jumped out at you from the content of the ULP convention? I followed some of the NDP's convention. I followed with interest because my friend Kishore
Yeah,
was making his
yeah.
debut there, and I wanted to know what the NDP had. There wasn't anything except they got a little bit bolder with the setting of passport, and I suspected why that happened.
Mm.
But contrast that, Richard, with what you heard from the ULP in terms of plans going forward. Did you hear anything that said to you that this party continues to innovate, continues to rejuvenate itself, and still present itself as fresh and new and innovative for the future?
Okay. I like you. I the convention via social media. I did not. I wasn't present. So, if you allow, I'd like to go back first to the National Council meeting because that's the
Okay,
one I
yes.
attended. And uh, Prime Minister Gonzalez gave his report and so on, and he detailed, as he usually does, what is happening and what is supposed to happen. But that was not, and that was fantastic. It was good, and the atmosphere was good. But you asked me what jumped out at me. What is the most salient point? What is the
Hmm.
most significant thing is this: the internal political democracy of the ULP. You see that? That struck me like a bombshell. Let me tell you. There were people who got up there and say, "You promised to fix me house. We're going on." You understand what I'm saying? And
Right.
those people got up there and expressed themselves. This road needs fixed, comrade, and I don't understand what's going on. It's 4 years only promising. You understand what I'm saying? What's going on here? Okay? So there was a political democracy going on at the National Council meeting. And that struck me. Now, see, and you can stop me at any time to intervene or whatever. But it is important that people understand that the political party which is going to run the country, if it does not have that kind of political democracy where the condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak, I'll repeat that. It does not have that kind of political democracy. Condition of truth is to allow suffering to speak, and the condition of justice is to address suffering. You understand what I'm saying, right? Then the political democracy, you understand, will go over into an economic democracy. You understand? And everybody jump about this political democracy. I could say what I want. You could say what you want. Does that feed you? Does that educate you? Does that create health for you? You understand what I'm saying? In other words, if the party does not have political democracy, the economic democracy that you're looking for or that you're hoping for will never arrive. Now, let me put this clear so that people understand. And I'm going to contrast two things so that people really understand what I mean. The NDP had no political democracy. And Eustace, you understand, Mitchell and my very good friend, and you were there when he to me, Parnell Campbell, hijacked the party, you understand, to make Annie Eustace leader of the party. It was Parnell Campbell who told Mitchell, let us agree that only the parliamentary members, you understand, of the party will vote as to who will become leader. He said that in front of you. We were in his office when he told me the story. We were both there. You understand? When he told me the story. Now listen to me. If the party does not have that level of political democracy, economic democracy will suffer. So let us deal with this in real terms so that we understand. Ralph comes to power, and economic democracy tells him, you know what, boy, poor people sure need their education. I spend some money on them. You understand what I'm saying? Right? Ralph comes to power, and that kind of political democracy forces him into economic democracy. You know what? People need a house. Let me build a house. You understand? A low-income house now, and no-income house. That's the economic democracy. You understand? Ralph's political democracy in the party forces him to involve in economic democracy in the sense that, you know what? Let me tell you something, you know. You see them MRI thing and so on, only certain people in Sylvanus could afford that. We're going to bring one here. You understand what I'm saying? So that poor people could go and get it. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know if you get, I know you get it, but I don't know if our audience get it. You understand what I'm trying to say? That kind of political democracy is the first building block to ensuring economic democracy when the party gets into power. You understand? Because that political democracy did not exist in the NDP. Guess what now? We spent $300 million. You know who we spent it on? You spent it on? We give away 18 million for a Stranker. You know who we give it? You know who? You understand? Yeah. And then we gave 1 million to a man named Bensi Komodamis. You know who we gave it to, right? You know, right? And at the end of 17 years, we had what? 27.5%, 27.5% poverty. Why? Because the party never had no political democracy, which forces it, you understand, to get involved in economic democracy. You understand what I'm talking about? And these are things, look, Sian, when you ask me to address these things, you know I'm going to address them frontally. You know I'm going to address them forcefully. And I'm going to address them using facts. You know that about me. You understand? Now, coming back to the National Council, I saw this political democracy there. And I know one thing for sure. Ralph might get away with it for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. But every single day he go there, they're going to bring it to him. You understand what I'm saying? And he will have to address it. You hear me? He will have to address it. He will. You understand what I'm saying? Because the democracy, the political democracy of the party is going to force him to address the economic democracy of the party. And I could show this in other ways, you know. I could show this in other ways. Sian, if I'm lying, say to me to my face, Richard, you lie. You must not speak on truth like that. When the ULP raised the matter, Mitchell's response and the NDP was response, them can't pay for it, we ain't putting it there. You don't remember?
You broke up, so I didn't get the whole conversation because you broke up.
Okay, I'm saying that at one point in time, the ULP raised the question, is there no electricity over the river?
Oh, yes.
And the response of the NDP was, we know they can't pay for it, so we ain't putting it there. I don't know if you remember that.
That is correct. That is
you
correct.
Understand?
That is correct.
Economic democracy by Ralph now demand what? That is, you understand what I'm saying? And it is done. Let us deal with garbage collection, Sian. I don't know if you remember this, you know. Kingston was so dirty. You understand what I'm saying? That even cruise ships stopped coming to Kingston. Those are the facts, you know, Sian. Economic democracy dictated to Ralph that garbage must be collected in every nook and cranny in this country. You understand?
Yes.
Whether it's tourism or no tourism, economic democracy decided all we must have cleanliness. You understand what I'm saying? So that is what struck me there at the national. Okay.
If I can say something, Richard, if I can say something, and please,
of the National Council.
Right. So I was interrupting you to tell you this. One of the features of neighborhoods like mine when we were growing up was something called rubbish heap.
Yes.
There were different areas in the community where you went to throw your rubbish. over some old wall somewhere, over some embankment somewhere, and so forth. Those things are pretty much gone, because like you said, there is because I remember coming to Kingstown and seeing those yellow garbage trucks in Kingstown. I believe as a little boy, when I was going to school in Leyu, there were donkey drawn carts that picked up the garbage in Leyu. I remember Leyu for sure. But it is only since the ULP that there is island-wide collection of garbage, and not just island-wide, but countrywide, because St. Vincent and Grenadines is not a single island, but rather a multi-island state, and every single island, be it Union Island or Canouan or Beckwith, also benefits from garbage collection, regular garbage collection done instituted by this government. So you're absolutely right. The issue of the cleanliness of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, the government did its part in ensuring that things were put in place to deal with that. Now, Richard, don't forget as we talk about that you were welcomed. The welcome sign to St. Vincent and the Grenadines as he flew in was the incinerator.
Yes, yes. That
Welcome to St. Vincent.
and the
Was it,
Grenadines. When you look out the plane, what you saw was a big garbage dump out there. That's what you saw.
And I remember our friend Gobels would talk about the fact that when the garbage trucks were coming down, or not necessarily garbage trucks, but certain establishments had their vehicles coming down with their rotten chicken and so on, people used to actually be running behind those trucks to collect
You are, yeah.
disposed chicken.
Yeah. This is the point. This is exactly the point. Because there was a lack of economic democracy, we could throw away 18 million to foreigners. Give a foreigner 1 million. You understand? But poor people in our country running behind a truck of rotten chicken so that they could get some. You understand? And that is because there was no political democracy within the NDP. Finally, just to drive this point home, the only person in the history of our country that has taken a resolution to the parliament of our country, where we are going to spend the most money we have ever spent at that time. You understand? On a public good, so to speak. You understand? He took a resolution to the parliament to say, I alone, you understand, will handle this. You understand? There was no political democracy. And once there's no political democracy within a party, when it gets into government, you cannot expect economic democracy. You understand? So that is the fundamental lesson that I took from the National Council. As I say, it was all lively, it was all people happy and so on, all of that. You understand? But you know me enough to know that I usually go to those things and I don't talk.
You look beyond the surface. You look beyond the
understand?
surface.
Right? I looking at everything, and that is what I saw. Now, as regards the convention, I will begin firstly with my disappointment. I was extremely disappointed to hear, extremely, not just disappointed. I was extremely disappointed to hear that Montgomery Daniel was re-elected as deputy leader. The prime minister in his address already said that Montgomery Daniel, this is his last. You understand what I'm saying? He's not coming back, right? How in heaven's name you're preparing the party for the future, you understand? And electing a deputy leader, you understand? Who you yourself have said is leaving. That doesn't make sense to me. You understand what I'm saying? And people can justify it and say, oh, it's democracy and so on and so forth. Come on. If we're dealing with things scientifically, that kind of argument is nonsensical and foolish. It is nonsensical as it is foolish. You understand? And
well,
so
here's the thing, Richard. Here's the thing. So
the point. That is my major disappointment. I can tell you what the positive are, right?
So let's deal with the disappointment. Let's deal with the disappointment aspect of it. I heard of that afterwards. That Minister Daniel was re-elected deputy leader. Um, and it could be for exactly the same reason why you think he should not have been, which is that he's leaving. And so, because ultimately, Richard, if someone listens to you, one can get the impression that this was the political leaders doing, as in Ralph Gonzalez, um, making Gomery the deputy political leader. But like you said, he was elected. And so
Yes.
if whatever the thoughts of the comrades could be, listen, this man is on the way out, let me send him out as deputy prime minister. Um, and we start the process after the elections. Now, I look, the truth is, where for me, Richard, for me, um, Minister Daniel would not have been elected the deputy political leader after the last election. For me, in 2020. I saw something different. I thought the party could have made a very bold statement then. Um, but the party decided to go for the safe statement then, right? We could have gone bold and shatter all expectations, but we decided to go safe. And nothing's wrong with safe, right? Here again, I think we are going for the safe option. And I can see in my mind's eye how that is a safe option going forward. And not ruffle the feather option, safe option that keeps the status quo. And based on where things are, and based on the six-term trajectory and so forth, maybe the status quo in the structure is what is required. So I can see, while I completely hear you and see your point of view, I can also see, because I have been very close to the heart of the politics of it, I can also see the rationale behind it. Just to make that point.
Well, I mean, as you said, you're close, you're inside, and so on. But I'm saying this. This is the last thing I would say. I do not know how we are going to go forward, firmly stuck in reverse or in neutral. I simply don't understand it. It goes against our logic in my mind. You understand? There's no
Okay.
way that I'm going to go forward stuck in neutral or in reverse. I really don't see it.
Okay.
But be that as it may, that was a fundamental disappointment on from my standpoint. Now we know that there are many things going on with governance in the country, meaning there are many projects and so on taking place. My own view, and I could be wrong again, my own view is that part of the Prime Minister's speech should have been focused significantly on getting some small things right. You understand what I'm saying? I think
Mhm.
so. That is my view. I think that things like the traffic situation in the country and so on are things that needs to be addressed. The noise pollution in this country, these are things that needs to be addressed. And these are simple things. These are not the major projects like building a hospital or cutting a tunnel through a King Garden and so on and so on. Those are major things that needs to be done. But see, and you learned a long time ago that the devil is in the details. You understand? And sometimes it is in those details that these little things are so important. A little screw, sometime, one missing screw and the machinery don't work well. You understand what I'm trying to say? The machinery itself. So I thought that in looking forward, the government or the prime minister in his speech at the time would have said, listen, yes, all the major projects, because the ULP has proven when it comes to these major projects, it will deliver hands down. You can't argue with them enough. Whether you want to argue them or not. Whether you take airport, a bridge, universal education, they will deliver it. Don't fool yourself about this thing. They will. You understand? So what about those minor things that mean so much to people's life? I live in a house, pay the government X amount of dollars every year for my taxes, but I cannot sleep quietly in my house. You understand what I'm saying? There's a neighbor with a van that wakes up the whole neighborhood, and the police see nothing about it. You understand? Richard, me, right? I love walking. You know that yourself. And I like walking from my house to the beach and back, you know? And every single time I try to do that, the fear that grips me, you cannot imagine, because of the recklessness taking place on the roads of this country. Dr. John, one of the medical doctors at the hospital, in as recent as this week, early this week, said NBC radio reported it, there are too many injuries coming from vehicular accidents. And the government remains silent on these matters and is doing nothing about it, as far as I'm concerned. You understand? So I believe that it is my view, yes, the major projects and so on, but we all know these things. Ralph has proven, the ULP has proven things, and they are delivering them. You understand what I'm saying? They are delivering them, and competently so, efficaciously so. They are delivering these things. You understand? But what about these other little things that really and truly need to be addressed? So, for example, even education as regards climate change, practical education for people. You understand what I'm saying? We talk a good talk at the international level, right? And when the Prime Minister goes on the radio, he talks a good talk here and there. But what does the ordinary person in St. Vincent know? You understand? And what is his role in dealing with this? What is his role in dealing with sanitation, apart from the fact that we are collecting garbage across the country? What is your personal role? It is these little things that leadership also must address. Otherwise, we only addressing one side of the spectrum, and we're not addressing. So that was a second disappointment I had in terms of the national convention. Okay, so those were the two major disappointments I had. Now, there is one other thing. I could be wrong, but I believe that we are about 14 months away from another election, right? Because the Prime Minister never overstays his time.
So we're about a year away, because election was in November. So we're about 1 year.
Right. So the Prime Minister never overstays his time. And so I thought that this was going to be the last convention before the elections. From his own words, this is not the case. There's going to be another convention, you know. But I believe that this convention could have, I mean, it is focused, but I still believe it could have been more focused on this, you know, saying this is for the sixth term. You understand what I'm saying? Really focus on it. And I didn't get that. So those are my three basic disappointments. Now let's come to the positives of it. There's a lot of energy in Labour, and including its leader, the Prime Minister. He's not a tired man. He didn't come across as tired. The party itself does not come across as tired in any way, shape, or form. Secondly, it shows that Labour is able to hold on to much of its core support. You understand? And that is fundamental. That is really, really fundamental. Because regardless of what anybody has to say, you move from your core support outwards. That's what you do. Yeah. You move from your core support outwards. So that's the second thing that you saw. The third thing, and that really was amazing to me, you know, at the whole convention, and the only person I know was one. I know nobody else. I know two persons, right? Apart from the people that were atop the head table, you know, right? I know everybody up there. Outside of them, I swear to you, Anthony Denny and one other woman. I wouldn't call that woman's name because she probably don't want me to call her name. You understand what I'm saying? But Anthony Denny, our friend Anthony Denny, he was with a camera taking picture, right? And another woman. I did not know anybody else there at all. Nobody I knew. And there were many people there. You understand what I'm saying? Now, this to me said something. You understand what I'm saying? Because I should know. Some of these people, but I didn't. And a significant amount of them were young people. You understand? So that told me something that somehow the other Labour is able to reach, a new people and so on and so forth. I was very impressed with the entrance of Minister James. Say what you want, but that man walked in there like a statesman, and that I was really impressed with with Carlos. I was just truly impressed with Minister James, on the day. And I don't know, parties always do this. So fifthly, it seemed to me that the party, but I don't know, but it seems that there is truly a united front. You understand what I'm saying? Within the party. I don't know that is actually the case inside. You would know better than me because you're closer. But from my prison, from my limited prison, I thought that the party showed a lot of unity, on that day. And last but not least, I do think that well, at least so it seemed to me that the party is ready and willing to renew itself up to a point. The reason I say this is because the Prime Minister made it clear that certain people will not be going back. That includes Montgomery Daniel, that we have already spoke about, and I think he mentioned Augustus Frederick Augustus Stevenson would also not be running again. So it sent to me, which is a good sign, that the party is willing to renew itself as it sees fit. So those are the positives I took from it.
Okay. All right, Richard, we spent a lot of time on the local, and much longer than I wanted us to, and we didn't even take a break. So I think now is as good a time as ever to take our first break. We should take a first break about 20 minutes ago.
But before you take a break, before we go on to anything else, I'd like you to, if you allow, that when we come back, we talk a little bit about the two bills that were passed in Parliament on Thursday. I think it's significant.
No problem. Right. So let's take a quick break, play our favorite ad, come right back with more on this program. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Covering 150 years of history, relating the story of 5 generations. It took 12 years to write, and now it's finally here. The story of Pauline Bramble, Springs, Blossoms, and Young Thorns, a literary masterpiece by Dr. Richard A. Byron-Cox, author of the critically acclaimed Where Mama Stares in Vain. Pauline Bramble's story is your great-great-grandparents, great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and your story. It is our story of pain, love, tears, and joys, our story of struggle with no surrender. It's a golden gift to our nation as we mark 45 years of independence. Get your copy and a gift for a friend for this independence from Games Bookshop, Career City Store, Giggles at AIA, and Jazzy's at the Cruise Ship Berth. It is our story like never told before. The story of Pauline Bramble. Read it and be inspired.
And welcome back to this Sunday Settie, hosted by C.R. Marshall and regular contributor to the program, Dr. Richard Byron-Cox. It's Sunday, the 1st of December, new month, Christmas month, and I am in St. Vincent. Hey, such is life. By the way, Richard.
Hey, it's me and Daddy Lime in for Christmas. You lock out. Ha! Take that.
I was just about to offer you something special and I just changed your mind.
Oh yeah, no, please. I take back everything.
Just so.
No, I take back everything. I take back everything.
Okay. Because I was going to tell you, remember that you and I usually go to a particular dinner every Christmas?
Yes.
I wouldn't be there, but I'm making arrangements for you to attend that dinner.
Man, I'm virgin. That man is virgin.
I'll lay on start to talk me. Looking out for you. It's okay.
But you know what it is with me, you know it is.
It's okay. I'm looking out for you still.
You know it is. Don't worry yourself, man.
Looking out for you still.
Man, don't worry yourself, no man.
So I'm making those provisions for you to attend that dinner as my representative because I would not be there. All right. Now, Richard, I heard you on Friday. I was able to briefly log on Friday as you were there with Denny and you were discussing the meeting the day before in the House of Assembly, and the lack of seriousness displayed by the opposition, by members of the opposition, in not preparing themselves adequately to do the work of the people in addressing the people's business. Now, there were two bills. Again, Thursday, I wasn't able to be a part because, as you know, Thursday I was in Scotland, and I was very involved for the entire day. But tell us a little bit about, first of all, the bills, and go further and explain why you were so incensed with the general lack of seriousness that the opposition seems to be taking towards the people's business in the parliament.
Okay. Well, firstly, there were actually three bills on the order paper, three of them.
Okay.
But the two that we are concerned with, and which I was terribly concerned with at the time, is one that has to do with Town and Country Planning Act, and revision of that, making changes to it, and something called the Dogs Bill. Okay. Now, the first one is in response to what is happening in our country and in the Caribbean, climate change, and the effects of climate change is having on housing, in particular. So the building codes of this country have got to be strengthened, because we have to now do some modifications in the way we construct buildings in our country so that they're safe. Okay. So this is a very crucial bill, because what we're talking about, it's not just your property, but more importantly, your life, your life and your limb. You understand? That is what we're talking about.
Right.
Okay. And the government has decided that this law needs to be updated to reflect, okay, the reality that we live in this time, in this age of climate change, or what you call the Anthropocene, and so the bill was brought to the House. And the second bill is the Dogs Bill. It is one of those bills, Cian, that I always wanted. As you know, Cian, I'm a man who leaves my house early in the morning. I go to the beach and I walk back home. And my favorite beach on this side of the island is Indian Bay. And I had to stop using that bay. You know why? Because every morning I went down there was somebody with one of these dangerous dogs. You understand? Pit bull and whatever else they have. No muzzle. You understand? Sometimes no leash. You understand? And I couldn't play with my life. Now, ask yourself, Cian, how could that be fair? The beach belongs to all of us, but you come with your dog and threaten my life. Could that be fair? Could that be just? Could that be right? No, it is not. Outside of that, I'll be walking on the road and would see these people with these dogs. They would have them on a leash, but no muzzle over their mouth. You understand what I'm saying? And these are big, strong, and powerful dogs. What sort of madness is this? You understand? So what here is disorderliness and lawlessness. Lawlessness from the standpoint that there was no law that clearly, and precisely regulated this. And so therefore, that lead to a particular kind of behavior. But the lawlessness was not with the people first and foremost, but with lawmakers, because they refuse up to that point to make the law. You understand what I'm saying? And so these people had a free rein to walk their dangerous dogs, and threaten the lives of people like myself and others. So these were two very important pieces of legislation. You are a lawyer, right? I'm soon to be called to the bar. So you understand first and foremost that regardless of what any teacher tells you, the first function of law is the regulation of behavior. That is what law does. It regulates your behavior. That's the first thing law does. It's the first function of law, right? And therefore, these laws are made to regulate people's behavior in two ways. One, how you build and construct homes in the future to protect yourself, to protect your family, and to protect the property that you're constructing. You understand what I'm saying? It's a crucial piece of legislation. And secondly, the safety and orderliness, right? And in our country as regards these dangerous dogs. Papa, to my great surprise, Montgomery Daniel, who presented the bill, to change the law as regards town country planning. Knew his onions. You understand? Inside out. Prime Minister knew it, and so on and so forth. Right? As regards the dogs law, the person who tabled it was the Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Sabota Caesar. He also knew his onions. He knew what he was doing, and so on and so on. Lo and behold, Sian, that members of parliament on the opposition got up and openly said, I didn't read the bill. I didn't read the whole bill. You understand? Clear that those who pretend to read it only read the first paragraph on the first page and the last paragraph on the last page, so that they did not know the content of the bill. You understand? They didn't know the substance of the bill. Now, you ask a fundamental question. Why was I so incensed? Why was I so upset? Why was I so angry? Well, let me list them in very clear terms. One, Montgomery Daniel, Ralph Gonzalez, so to see all of these people run ministries, you understand? And their portfolios cover various things, not just any one thing, you understand? Montgomery Daniel is transport and works, if I remember correctly, right? Let's take Sabota Caesar. He's agriculture, fisheries, labor, and all kind of other things. I don't remember. You understand what I'm saying? Too much to remember, basically, for my old brains. But these are ministers who have to run ministries every single day of their lives, 24/7. But they come there prepared. You are in the opposition. You do nothing, absolutely nothing. Please tell me, what do they do? Please tell me what ministry they run, what department they run. Please tell me what they're doing. And you not only delinquent, negligent, you understand, as regards your job, but you publicly admit it in the House of Parliament. Now, any person who's a patriot and any person who understands the role of Parliament, the first role of Parliament, is to be the lawmaking body of the country. That's the first role of Parliament. Anybody tell you anything, tell them Richard Byron-Cox, tell them they don't understand what is Parliament. Tell them I tell you that. That's his first role. It is the lawmaking body. You understand? The highest lawmaking body. Because Ralph Gonzalez, you understand, could wake up tomorrow morning, something happen and declare a state of emergency, and it becomes law. You understand what I'm saying? Ralph Gonzalez, has the authority. That is what is called delegated responsibility. And he declares a national emergency because super Europe. You understand? And so now we have a state of emergency. And everybody has to obey it. You understand what I'm saying? But those are extraordinary circumstances. You understand? Right? And as regards, of course, the running of day-to-day and so on, how much money we spend here or there, whatever, comes out in the budget as determined by the government generally. But even that has got to be passed where? In the Parliament. You and I know this. Now, so let us understand clearly what we're talking about. Your job is to help make the laws of the country. That is your job as a parliamentarian. The Constitution want to make sure that you can do your job quietly, easily, or whatever. It makes you honorable. You have a particular kind of title, a particular kind of space, you understand? Provided by the Constitution of the country, provided by the Constitution of the country for you. You understand what I'm saying? Right? You have nothing to do. Nothing. You don't run a ministry. You don't run a department. You have nothing to do. Outside, you want to convince me that you are the government in waiting. That's what you're trying to convince me about. You understand? And then you come to the house and show to me that you're negligent and delinquent. But not only that, when you start to debate, you show me that you are incompetent. You cannot debate. You understand what I'm saying? So how in heaven's name did you want me to believe that you could run this country when you're negligent, delinquent, and incompetent? Please explain this to me. Please explain this to me. You see, there's a lot of people who believe in this country, that because you and I are black and we ain't come from the color thing, you understand? They could come and talk foolishness. But let them understand that we went to school. You understand what I'm saying? And the color of our skin does not determine our intelligence. Let them understand that. This must be made clear. You hear me? This must be made clear. How in heaven's name, Sian? Please explain this to me, Sian. Please explain it to me. Because you and I go law school. I went to law school before you. But I come in England and I stay by your place and I watch you. You know what I see you doing every day, Sian? Preparing yourself. You hear me? That is what I see you doing. Preparing yourself. Because you know a test is coming somewhere down the road. You understand what I'm saying? You have to come into the House of Parliament, brother. This is your sacred duty. This is what you are elected to do. This is what this body is created to do. This is what the Constitution guarantees you a role to play in. The Constitution guarantees it for you. And you don't only negate it. You're not only delinquent towards it, but when you're trying to do it, you prove to be incompetent. And you want me to vote for you, Sian? You want me to put this country into your hands? No, you might not like what I'm saying. I can understand that. I can understand that whoever is listening to us and who supports the NDP might be uncomfortable. But remember, we began this discussion this afternoon saying one simple thing. We are both students of what? Science, social and natural, right? And therefore, our stock in trade is not belief, it's not hate, and it's not jealousy. You understand? It's not some atmospheric conclusion about things that has no basis. You understand? Are baseless. We first and foremost, our stock in trade is something called facts. Facts. That is our stock in trade. That is my stock in trade as a student of science.
I was explaining to a friend of mine not so long ago, because the content of the discussion we were having was about lawyers and lawyers telling lies. Lawyers telling lies. And I grew up with that as well. I grew up, with the whole belief that lawyers tell lies, and they go in court and tell a whole heap of lies and so forth. And I have to explain that, listen, lawyers deal with one thing and one thing only, facts. And so when you come to court, when you deal with a matter, it's about proving the facts, not what you think, not what you believe, not what somebody tell you. And so all the lawyer has to do is create enough doubt in the mind of the jury that they prove the fact. That's it. They got to tell one lie. They just got to allow you to talk and undermine you sufficiently so that there's doubt in the mind of the jury. And you have a situation in missing readings where people think that they're entitled to their own facts. People seem to think that they're entitled to their own facts. So the government offered 103 national scholarships exhibitions and bursaries this year. That is a fact. You may not like it.
It's a fact.
Like the impact that it would have. You may not like the fact we're talking about it over and over and over, and people get to but it is the fact. Your denial of it doesn't change the fact that on that particular day in Victoria Park, 103 awards were handed out. But in St. Vincent Grenadines, there is so much emotion. There are so many emotions. There are so many different feelings and opinions that too often people think that their opinions, if repeated often enough, becomes fact. And the point that you're making, Richard, about the responsibility of the members of parliament is a fact. Created by the Constitution, created by our laws, you have a role that is constitutional. And any dereliction of that duty, when you come in to tell me you ain't read the bill, in other words, you ain't study and prepare for your job, that should indicate to Vincentians the level of seriousness that you have. If you can't be serious in opposition, This is not a fact, but it's a question. How can I trust you to be serious in government? How? And so I understand, Richard, the reason that you were so incensed. Um, but you see, I'll tell you this. One of the things that not just the official opposition, but individuals who speak on their behalf, or even individuals who agitate in the public space, one of the things that they are able to do well is distract Vincentians with non-issues and elevate those non-issues to a place of priority. So I remember, for example, and I'm going to bring this up, and I posted it. There was a ripped chair at the Aga International Airport, a ripped seat. And I saw it on SBG Times. Now, I saw it on SBG Times. As a news blog. Must see over 40, 50,000 people on that. So I thought, that was curious. And I pondered over it. But then on Wednesday, traveling to Scotland, to Glasgow, I went into Birmingham International Airport, where you went into recently because you visited me. And while I'm walking through, I'm seeing Richard all kind of tear up chair and tear up chair and tear up chair in Birmingham Airport. I said, wait. Birmingham is England's second city. Right now, right? Birmingham is England's second city. This is their international airport. This is not a joke airport. This is a place of means. And a significant percentage of the chairs are torn, and people are just going about their business, sit on the chair, and move on. So I posted and said, look, this made news in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, but meanwhile in Birmingham. And I posted a video. Well, Gans Byron, someone who I thought had a bit more, I don't know, commented to say, I am lying. He don't believe I tell you the truth about Birmingham, because if I were post photos, so I said, but Gans, I post a whole video, so I'm not sure where the discrediting of me is coming from. But for Gans to come to me in that way, accusing me of lying for something like that, okay, I was like, interesting, you know. And my point was not that a seat can be repaired. Of course, it can be repaired. But how was that news? But that would be shared, and that would be shared and reshared and reshared. Because look, I remember I even got into a bit of a back and forth with my good friend all I went to school with. And all things that is such a disgrace that a chair is ripped in the airport. Boss, the rip chair, keep it moving. Like, we have cars, personal private cars, rip chair, we have rip chair in the house. Keep it moving. It to me, to suggest that someone is a dereliction of duty because a chair that is ripped in the airport ain't repaired. It's like majoring in minors. But many individuals are able to create enough dissent over those type of things and try and elevate them to an area where they ought not to be. Yeah, you see the chair, it rip and so on, and you know, so they can't fix that. And it's done, and it'll fix. But that is the type of that is what passes for social commentary, and earlier, Richard, you know, we're talking about the whole issue of an education revolution as opposed to a certification revolution. Because I would walk to Birmingham and I would never have paid attention to a rip chair. The only reason I was able to pay attention to a rip chair in the international airport at Birmingham, and I'm sure they would be at Heathrow and wherever, is because I saw a photo of a ripped seat on a news blog in St. Vincent and the Grenadines being touted as an issue of such significance. But I guess that's how it is in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
Well, there's a comment here from that says, I think hard seats is the way to go. And I want to welcome everybody. And I ask you again to please share the live. Now, I see it on the three different lights in this particular question. I don't want us to belabor the point, but I think I need to see this. Firstly, um, um, the actions of Gans Byron. I happen to know Gans personally, and I do not think that Gans in any way or shape or form meant bad for St. Vincent, or indeed felt that that belonged in the news, right? But I think what Gans was doing, and which I would do if I were him, is to call attention to the maintenance of what we have. And I think that's one of the things I like about Germany and Switzerland, those two countries which I had the privilege of living in. They maintain everything. You understand? And I think that is what, and this is our reception point. And in our reception point, I happen to share Gan's view that these things must not only work, they must look good, and we
Now
have.
you're the second person. One person inboxed me, and now you're referring to what Gans is doing. The only thing I am saying that Gans did is call me a liar. Now,
Yeah,
unless I'm missing something that Gans did,
hold
like
on,
the
hold on.
person, I am lost.
Hold on. As I said, there are three things here, right? I'm not talking about you and Gans yet. I'm just talking about what Gans did, right?
Which is what?
Right.
Because as far as I'm
As far
concerned,
as I took a picture of a chair, right? With a tone seat and put it on social media.
so
That
you
is what
see,
Gans did.
hold on. So you
Hold on.
see, no. I have to speak because that's the problem.
So
Clearly,
you should not have done that.
are
No,
you going to listen to me or are you going to talk?
No, I'm asking you. You should not have done that
No,
because you said.
I am talking. I am talking. So let me finish what I'm saying.
But you didn't
Clearly,
allow me to finish what I'm saying. You jumped in the middle of what I'm saying.
I
But you
jumped
know
in because now you've offered
that is what you can do.
clarity.
That is
No, no,
your
no, 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 no.
right.
No, Richard. You offered clarity because you started saying what Gans did.
Yes, and I'm
And I
making
said,
myself clear, but you
no,
did not
hold on, Richard.
I must hold on, but you must not hold
on.
on. That's the point I'm making.
Richard,
I understood it. So let's continue. Let us
Richard,
continue.
Richard.
I
No,
must
no,
hold
no, no,
on.
no, no, no.
Let's
Richard, relax yourself.
No, I'm saying I'm holding on. I must hold on. You must not hold on.
Richard,
I'm
relax
holding
yourself,
on.
my man.
I'm
How
holding
it's
on.
about you? How it's about you? Just relax. I'm trying to explain that for once now, I have clarity. And you're not listening. So I said to you what Gans did. And the only thing I know Gans did was when I posted the picture from SVG Times, he said I was lying. You started talking about what Gans did and what Gans raised. But I don't know Gans raised anything. I know Gans tell me I lie. But somebody had inboxed me about something about Gans and what Gans said. So now for the first time, as you spoke, when I asked you what did Gans do, you are telling me that Gans had taken a photo and put it on social media. It is clear to me now that the photo I saw on SVG Times is Gans' photo. But I never saw Gans post the photo. I never knew Gans had posted the photo. I never knew Gans had taken the photo. I took the photo from the news blog. So I could understand now why Gans came at me because Gans clearly thought I was coming at him by using the photo he had taken. And so I'm not suggesting that Gans shouldn't have taken a photo or whatever because I never knew Gans took a photo.
No.
I never knew Gans took a photo. I just saw, I'm like saying to myself, but why is Honest to making this news? I had no clue about what any backstory. This was about Honest to taking up Che and making it news. And that's the point I wanted to make.
Okay, so now let me continue. So my understanding is Gans in no way, shape, or form was involved in any mischief making. I am not suggesting now that Honesto or whomever you saw it on is mischief making. What I do know is this, that it did make mischief. That is what I do know. And that's the second part. So the first part is that in my understanding, God's intentions is simple. Let us get the small things right. That's his intention. That's my understanding of God's. That's his intention. Let us get the small things right. Somebody else now take a small thing and make that small thing, as you were saying, which is the second part of the discussion, as you were saying, into one big blown up thing, which was not necessary. You understand? That's the second part. I said there are three parts to how I understand this thing. The third part of which I understand, and which I think is the most crucial part, is this, that it seems to me that whatever happens in this country, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, nothing at all must go wrong. St. Vincent must be utopia. You understand what I'm saying? So if anything goes bad, anything at all, it doesn't matter. You understand what I'm saying? Miss Millie walk down the hill and stomp shit up, and somebody take a picture of Miss Millie stomp too. You understand what I'm saying? St. Vincent bad, the government bad, all of that. You understand what I'm trying to say? Those are the three things I want to say. One, I don't believe that Gans at any point in time, I know Gans well enough to know that he was not mischief making. Two, I'm not suggesting that the newspaper was mischief making, but what is absolutely clear to me is this, that mischief was made. There's no if and what's about that. What am I talking about there? I think you fully understand what I'm trying to say. Journalism has got to be more responsible. That is the point I'm making with that second point. And the third point, and this is the most important point in my mind, is that we always seem, whatever happened in this country, nothing must go wrong in St. Vincent. Do you understand what I'm saying? Nothing at all. You know, if by chance you went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you understand what I'm saying, to see CN Marshall, and for whatever reason, CN Marshall was not, probably, you know, his daughter got sick. You understand what I'm saying? And he's at the hospital with his daughter. That needs to go on the front page. I went to Foreign Affairs and nobody did it to serve me, which is not true. You understand the point I'm trying to make? So those are the three. Those are the three aspects under which I see this thing. You understand? And I think this is a point that I think is necessary for us to understand. I think a lot of people, I'm not saying this about you. I'm not saying this about you, so don't get me wrong. All right? But I do think that a lot of people in the ULP, in the government, are seriously suffering from a very thin epidermis. You know, they're extremely thin skin. And that leads to a disease behavior. You know, once anybody questions anything, or anybody points out something which is not right, or anybody points out something which is wrong, you know, because of this very thin epidermis that the party suffers from, or some elements of the party suffer from. And I think we have to get over that. We have to be more mature about those kinds of things. You know, somebody might say to the Prime Minister of the country, look, this is the level of crime and so on. And his answer to that might be this: oh, but nobody's mentioning how much students are at the A-level college. You understand what I'm saying? Yes, it's a good thing, and we have much more students at A-level college, and it probably helps in keeping people away from crime and so on. But the fact of the matter is that there is a crime problem here. You understand what I'm saying? That's the fact of the matter, you know. There is a crime problem that needs to be solved. And no amount of you telling me how much students are in the A-level college is going to fix that crime problem. But the moment you say that, you're anti-Ralph, you're anti-Labor, and you're anti-somebody else, and I don't know who else you're anti to. But the fact remains that even if you have 1,000, you understand, persons at the A-level college, and all of them are men, right? And you have 200 murders taking place. We don't have 200 murders. I'm just giving you an example. 200 murders taking place a year, right? We still have 200 murders taking place that needs to be addressed. Or you see it otherwise? What do you think?
Well, first of all, I just put up a comment there from Ev where he's urging us to breathe. One at a time, he says. And I need to tell Ev, boss, when
This
Richard
is
and
so
I,
cool.
yeah, it's never one at a time, boss, man. It's never one. And like we make the point all the time, Richard, that people probably think that I follow Richard around
No, I,
like a sheep to
no.
a shepherd, you
I
know?
think people tend to believe that because we're so close, we see everything eye to eye, and that's a mistake.
Yeah, and that I
And that
support you.
we
I
are
mean,
afraid to confront each
yeah,
other if we say, no, I don't agree with you on that. That we're afraid to do
nah,
this. And I think it's a
nope,
mistake
nope,
that a lot of
nope.
people make all the time.
I think so. I think so.
I think it's a mistake a lot of
Because
people make
believe
all
you
the time.
me, almost every time I am at Richard's house and we are being social, it's a big argument. Almost every time, you know. So Ev, sorry, but welcome to Jamrock. This is how we do it very often. But Richard asked whether or not it's what I think. Now, I don't think anyone who has known me, followed me on radio over the last 10 years, or even while I was press secretary and so forth, anyone who has followed me since my own since my the scandal, quote unquote, in New York, and look at me and say I'm doing the same. I'm passionate though, but I do understand where some individuals within the ULP feel the need to always be on the defensive. And I think, Richard, that is partly because they feel that they're always being attacked. And there is no breathing space where, okay, you don't celebrate the airport, for example, and understand, Richard, that, okay, let me not say understand. People are extremely touchy, especially about the airport, because so many attempts were made by so many individuals to derail the progress of the airport. So the airport is like everybody's little child, where everybody feel the need and the urge, for those of us who support it, to protect it. And so anything at all, which I think is definitely going overboard, but anything at all said about the airport is met immediately with a defensive posture, and you're pulling on the airport. Because Richard, from the time the government announced the building of the airport, it has consistently been attacked. And even some of our own comrades got allowed the NDP to get in their head, question the airport and the validity of the airport and whether it makes sense and so on and so on. So I understand. I may not necessarily agree with it, but I understand why it is in the nature of many supporters of the project that is the AIA to defend it at all costs. At all costs. The AIA especially. But that is not to say that individuals do not think that there's a place for dissent. We started earlier in a segment where you acknowledged the political democracy of the party, and that I guess the general consensus of the party is, because we have such a vibrant political democracy, one that you admire, that is a time and a place. So a comrade who recognizes you're not a comrade, so you don't have to comply, you don't have to do this. But a comrade who recognizes certain things need to be done, there's a time and a place in the labor family. And so some comrades look, as let me use premise as word, askance at other comrades as it were washing your dirty linen in public, because you know there's an opportunity and a time and a place for it. So again, I am just looking at the different variables, because there has to be space for criticism. There has to be space for criticism within the vibrant political democracy that you alluded to. And there has to be space for criticism outside of that, because there are people who are not a part of that vibrant democracy who want to criticize. And there will be those who, even though they are part of the vibrant political democracy, decide, you know what, sometimes when I do it within the context of the political democracy, I feel like getting nowhere. I feel like getting ignored. So maybe I need to go outside and talk about it. And there may be effect from doing something like that. But at the same time, appreciate the fact that there are those within the democracy that would say, nah, man, I didn't think that was necessary. You shouldn't go there. So I understand all the variables.
You see, look, I personally do not believe that my role or my task is to be critical of anybody, neither the NDP nor the ULP. I don't think that's my role. I think my role is to point out what is good and point out what is not so good, and to point out what needs to be changed or what needs to be done. I don't see this as criticism. So, for example, Sian, if you say to me, look, you know, okay, we have a medical facility here, and the next one from here is 20 miles away. We probably should have one somewhere in between, so 10 miles away. I don't see that as criticizing you, and the fact that you spread out the medical facilities. It's just me pointing out something that I think needs to be done. You understand what I'm saying? I don't see this as criticism, and that's the point I'm trying to make. The moment you say that, they see it as criticism, and then everybody gets on a high horse, and before you know it, all hell break loose. But let's get back to your earlier point, because I think that's a very, very, very significant point. There has been so much animosity towards Ryan Gonzalez, and so much animosity towards the Labour Party, that even things which are evidently purely good, you understand what I'm saying? Like what you were mentioning, the international airport. And Eustace, when his president came here, and Eustace started a march, he said a march against poverty, but he publicly came on the radio and said no, was to ensure that the president did not give us any money to build the airport. He said so himself. He said so himself. You understand? Sinclair Leacock is a man who said to the whole country that the proposed constitution at the time was far better, but he's a party man. He said so. You understand what I'm saying? So I can understand, and I do agree with that standpoint. It's not just that they fought it, but they fought it with so much animus. You understand what I'm saying? With so much hate, with so much bile, that a lot of ULP people are now back into a corner, and all they have to do, you understand, is fight to the death in terms of defense. You understand what I'm saying? Because they can see, they know that none of that is justified. None of that animus towards the airport. Who can justify it? Please explain it to me. How can it be justified? It can never, ever be justified. You understand? And when people see that their prime minister and their political party is being crucified for doing something that the country desperately needs, of course, they have no choice but to stand up and fight. That is where I stand. You understand? And I will defend Labour and will defend the airport as long as I'm alive. You understand what I'm saying? Right? Because that is where I stand. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, for example, CN, you might see, well, boy, yeah, the traffic in this country, and them bad man really behaving, but we need to pull them up. You understand what I'm saying? Right? And you say that, and you say, well, no, this is the government's responsibility. They have to do it. And people say, oh, you understand, you're against rap. You're against, and you're not criticizing anybody. What you're actually doing, Sian, is pointing out something that needs to be done. Do you understand? That's the argument I'm making. You're simply pointing out something that needs to be done. I mean, let us just use a simple analogy if you want. Sian, if Ralph had come to power in 2001 and met, which is what happened, and met the public assistance at $60, and in 2024, it remained at $60, you and I would cry shame and thing, wouldn't you?
Of course, of course.
Right? And is it because you want to criticize him, or is it because you're pointing out something that needs to be done? Which is it?
Yes. I'm pointing out something that needs to be done.
There's something that needs to be done. These are poor people. Inflation has gone up over those 23 years. It is only the right and proper thing for the government, you understand, to give them a little thing. Now, so,
Yes.
and to point that out and to say, well, the government need to address it, and to say so definitively, people get vexed with you. And all you're trying to do is to point out something that needs to be done.
Absolutely.
It's as simple as
And
that.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Richard. I agree with you. But just like I said, because of the animosity, because of the hate, because of all of that, the bile. I mean, remember it got to the point where they actually busted on Richard.
Well, this is the
So
point.
the party feels
You
that we have to
understand?
defend the comrade at all costs and defend we gains at all costs. And even
No.
if
I know you cannot
even
dispute
if
because I can prove it. So I will say it on your program. Lucette King said that we must be prepared to shed blood to rid this country of Ralph Gonzalez and his son. Those are her words. Lucette King said that. Let us assume.
right, exactly. So
She said
that's where things are. And so, you know, the ultra defensive nature of the comrades doing what they consider to be defending their party, defending their country, and defending their gains. It's one of those wonderful election songs that tell the party to do that because there is so much. I've never in the history of our country as a leader been exposed to so much bile, hate, and betrayal. Never before. Even though former Prime Minister Mitchell did so much injustice to people, there was never this level of hatred towards former Prime Minister Mitchell. You know? And I think that the defensive responses that we get, I believe, come in that context where people feel that it's as if people pick me too, and they want to take liberty pan the man in the government. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, the tribal war has been on from a long time, and I recall that Arnim Eustace said after the elections in 2001, we will be back in power within 6 months. I don't know if you remember he said that.
Yes.
But he did say it. You understand?
Yes.
He did say that we will be back in power within 6 months. You just had an election where the people overwhelmingly, 12-3, you understand, give a mandate to a man and his party to run the country. And because you're dissatisfied with it, you say we will be back in power within 6 months. That is what Arnim Eustace said.
And then 6 months became a year, and then after the term it was 1 term, Papa, and so on. So they were never accepting of the rejection of the people. And if you notice, Richard, up to today, if you listen to the NDP supporters, if you listen to the NDP parliamentarians, according to them, they lost the elections not because of the misdeeds of the NDP, but because of the quote-unquote roadblock revolution. So people didn't reject them. It wasn't that people went to the polls and voted against them. No, it was roadblock that brought the government down. And that's the reason they've been trying all sorts of violence to remove the ULP, failing to accept it wasn't a roadblock. It was actual votes that moved the NDP.
You see, the reason why I mentioned that, is this. This is the reason why. Think of it, Sian, for yourself, and then we could move on. Just to say this, because I think it's important. Right? Think of it this way. You have declared after the election, in 6 months we're back in power. And now for 24 years, that 6 months can't be realized. You understand? The amount of hate, bile, envy, bitterness that you have accumulated over those quarter of a century. I wrote an article where I said, I wrote it about 6 or 7 months ago, I do not recall. And I said, you have spent a generation trying to make look good bad. it's time to try something else. You have spent a generation trying to make the airport look like something bad. You fail. A matter of fact, as you know, see, and I'm not lying. Godwin Friday, the present leader of the opposition, wrote to the Eastern Caribbean Civil Aviation Authority and demanded that they don't allow the airport to be opened. He actually wrote that when the airport is already built. Those are facts. So can you imagine, you know, you predicted in 6 months you're going to have power. It's now 24 years. But in that 24 years, what has happened is that every single roadblock that you have placed in front of this man, he's either push it down, jump over it, walk under it, or walk around it. You understand what I'm saying? But he has found a way around it. That must, in you, it generates so much hate, so much envy, so much bitterness, that these people now have lost all sense of decent humanity. They have lost all sense of this. It is power at any cost, and demonize anyone, including yours truly, who is willing, who's brave enough to take these things and dismantle them. You understand? And show to people why, as I said, you're negligent, you're incompetent. You understand? And you should not be allowed to run this country. You understand? You should not be allowed to run this country. So I think what I'm trying to say is a lot of people in the ULP have seen this kind of bitterness, this kind of envy there. And so they feel backed into a corner. And therefore come out, you know what I mean? Anyhow they come out swinging. You understand?
Yes, yeah.
Anyhow they come out swinging. That's basically what
Simple
happens.
that.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
You know?
All right.
That is
20
basic.
minutes to go, Richard. We have to go global. Let's take a quick break, come back, and we have the final segment of the program.
Covering 150 years of history, relating the story of 5 generations. It took 12 years to write, and now it's finally here. The story of Pauline Bramble, Springs, Blossoms, and Young Thorns, a literary masterpiece by Dr. Richard A. Byron-Cox, author of the critically acclaimed Where Mama Stares in Vain. Pauline Bramble's story is your great-great-grandparents, great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and your story. It is our story of pain, love, tears, and joys, our story of struggle with no surrender. It's a golden gift to our nation as we mark 45 years of independence. Get your copy and a gift for a friend for this independence from Games Bookshop, Career City Store, Giggles at AIA, and Jazzy's at the Cruise Ship Berth. It is our story like never told before. The story of Pauline Bramble. Read it and be inspired.
And welcome back to this, the final segment of Sunday Settie. As always, my contributing host, Richard Byron-Cox, is here with me, and we've had a very lively discussion so far. So lively that every television to take a breather and relax yourself. Richard, by the way, he's also inviting you to have
We'll find out. He will find out.
He's also inviting you to touch a poll.
But you notice that he's inviting me to touch a poll.
That's what I'm saying.
Are you going to be there?
Well, apparently he's planning to be there. So at least if he comes, and hopefully the two you could sing.
See, and don't go in the hard part. Come back in the easy part.
Okay.
But as far as I know, Ev does not live in St. Vincent. So that means he is in St. Vincent.
No, Ev is at home. Ev is at home.
Oh, I thought he lived abroad.
He does live abroad, but he's at home. He
Okay.
As a matter of fact, when he messaged me sometime telling me that he actually forgot to walk with his books so that he could sign them. You know, so yeah. Phyllis Baines, good evening. Phyllis Baines is asking Richard whether she'll be able to get a book signed in April.
Well, I should be, if she's in New York in April, I should be in New York in April. So if she's in New York in April, I should be in New York in April. But if she comes home to St. Vincent at any point in time, I am willing to sign it.
Okay, fantastic. So there you go, Phyllis. Richard, COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan.
Yes.
I don't understand why Minister James couldn't say, well, boys, Sian, as part of the delegation, let me carry you for 1 week now because it's Baku. You know what I mean? But anyhow, I get it up with Minister
And then you
James.
have people writing in newspapers about corruption between Cian Marshall and Carlos James. If a little thing like, hold on, Papa, hold on, let me finish, hold on. If a little thing like a spit in the chair in the airport cause so much controversy, and they hear you gone back home, what think would happen there? I agree with Mr. James. I agree with Mr. James.
I spent years at the United Nations as part of the Civil Grenadines representative on EOS and climate change matters, co-chairing and co-coordinating resolutions on climate change. I have a master's in climate change law. You understand? And I'm currently writing a paper on climate litigation. And you think there'd be a question as to why someone who is trained and experienced and knowledgeable on climate change matters going to the climate change conference?
Okay, well, let me answer you. Let me answer you. You know, I know Ralph Gonzalez built an international airport, given to St. Vincent and all kind of thing. And every day I hear people say, oh, Ralph wicked, he's a murderer, he's a thief, he corrupt, all kind of things. So that's my answer to you. I done. Yeah, that's
story done. So Richard, COP29.
Yeah.
The outcome, they were looking for $1.3 trillion. They got 300 billion in pledges. And we know they will actually collect that.
Yes, they
right?
even get that.
But the inertia, Richard, that comes from some of these developed countries that in their own circumstances are suffering from significant climate variability and climate events.
Quite true.
How can you explain it? Is it simply that they figure that they have the resources to rebuild, so they could kick the can a little further, while not showing any concern at all to smaller countries?
Okay. Cian, probably one day, because you're trained in the field, I am trained in the field, and I've worked in the field extensively. We can probably have a program where we discuss in very, very layman terms what is climate change and so on and so forth, and how it is being handled. Before I get to answering the direct question, I think we need to establish just a simple philosophical paradigm or conceptual paradigm. You see, the North believe, and a lot of people in the South believe it as well, that you could fix an environmental problem, a sustainable development problem, purely from economics and politics. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Economics and politics are just parts. You understand? The fundamental question is the environment. What do you do about it? And it happens in the South and it happens in the North. So that in the South, a lot of people just believe, throw more money at it. You understand what I'm saying? And it will fix itself with more money. This is not the case. And a lot of people in the North believe, well, unless we could see how we could make some money when we throw some money, you understand? We're not throwing any money. You understand what I'm saying? So it is caught in this economic business, but it's also caught in the political business where the global North see themselves as one thing and the global South see themselves as a force of resistance to whatever the global North sees themselves as. That is the broad philosophical or conceptual parameter, you understand, in which we operate. And we must understand this. If we don't, we are making a mistake. So for example, Cian, you know, there's a lot of people who believe that you could fix climate change without fixing soils. You understand? And that is the most foolish argument that I have ever heard. And you would see it in all kind of books. Climate change. The fundamentals about fixing climate change, you understand, must include dealing with your land. If I may demonstrate this in very simple, very short terms, before we get to the issue, of directly answering that. Sian, as you know, to deal with climate change, you need something called carbon sequestration.
Carbon sinks. Yeah.
Right? Which just simply means the storing of carbon in things. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
The best sequester of carbon, as we know, as we speak now, 70% of all carbon is sequestered by the ocean, by the sea. And the other 30% is sequestered, is stored, you understand, on the land. And the best storage for that is good soils and green trees. But even if you don't accept the argument of good soils, everybody accept the arguments of trees. You understand what I'm saying? Everybody accept.
Yeah.
Right? Let me ask you something, Sian. Where are you going to plant them? Where are you going to plant the trees? In the sky? In the sea? Where? Where are you going to plant it? On land. And if the land is no good, will the trees grow? It's an elementary thing, you know. And you won't believe that major scientists around the world talking all this kind of foolishness. And the reason why they talk this kind of foolishness is because of those two other paradigms I'm talking about: economics and politics. So let's get to the issue now. The calculations made by scientists, the 1.3 trillion they talk about is nothing, you know. Only the scientists who are honest about this thing said that sum of money is nothing. You understand what I'm saying? It's a drop in the bucket as to what you really want. You understand what I'm saying? But as you know, they left with 300 billion. And we know at least half of that, nobody's ever going to see it. We know this. So what we're playing here is a game of big power politics and big power economics. That is what we're seeing here. And because in some cases, it hasn't hit home yet. You understand? They believe that, okay, the consequences are only for the Caribbean and the Pacific, the small island states, you know. But we all know the evidence is there to show. And as you have said, from the southeastern to the southwestern coast of the United States of America, you understand, Florida and all of them, sort of, the Florida Panhandle, you understand, and all those southeastern, southwestern states of the United States are severely affected practically every year now. You understand, right? By climate change and by these raging storms that are going forward. So what we're looking at here is the question as to whether or not the rich and the powerful of this world, as represented, you understand, by corporate America and corporate Europe, who then have their people in power, in government, you understand, whether they are willing to sacrifice the entire planet, you understand, not just us, you know, but the planet as a whole for a few dollars more. That is the question at heart, you know. That is really what we are facing. You understand? The Anthropocene is most evident in climate change. In anything else, it's more evident. In climate change is where it is most evident. You understand? And you are saying to me that to get more of a piece of paper with a stamp placed on it, you're willing to destroy this planet. It's madness. It's the same thing that we're seeing now, if I could segue a little bit, into what is happening in the theaters of war as we see them now, meaning in Gaza, right? In the Middle East as a whole, and the China-Taiwan issue. It is that they're willing to sacrifice the not life on this planet, you know, but the life of this planet. Not life on the planet, but the life of the planet. That is what they're willing to do, you know. And so the reality is that the Caribbean, which is what you want to address, and St. Vincent has an uphill battle on their hands. They have an uphill battle that even without Donald Trump, you understand, they're not willing to take the bull by the horns and deal with this matter in the way it ought to be dealt with. Now, you and I know Donald Trump is a man who don't believe in any climate change business. You understand? He don't believe in this thing. He withdrew from the Paris Agreement. We know this. So what we're looking at here is a real uphill climb for the global south, and more so for the small island states, including the Caribbean. Because as you know, our slogan is 1.5 to stay alive. You understand? Going anything beyond that is going to sink. The oceans are there's going to be so much melting of the ice, and the oceans are going to rise so much that you might have to evacuate the whole of Barbados. Where are you going to put them? The whole west coast of Africa, Senegal and so on. All those places will have to be evacuated. The whole coastline of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Kingston, which accommodates 1/3 of the population, Kingston and its surrounding, which accommodate 1/3 of the population of our country, about 33,000 people. You understand? A little bit more, a little bit less, but about that. You understand? Right? A significant portion of these people would have to be moving land. You understand? Now, to prevent all of that, right, you have to mitigate the of climate change and adjust yourself to it in one way or the other. You understand? And that takes money. But the developed countries, those who have money, and the masters of mankind, as Chomsky called them, you understand, determine what should happen. Now, what I find appalling in the global South Sea is that while we, our leaders, Ralph and whoever else, go about preaching about this, they're doing very little to educate, you know, the mass of the people as to what this thing is and what it means to them, and therefore could counter them in something that we call popular democracy and popular diplomacy, where the mass of the people themselves say, look, you understand what I'm saying? This thing has got to change. You understand? And we're not involved in that. Seeing you and I know that the average Vincentian, even if he or she has gone to university, can't really explain to you what is climate change. If his child or his daughter or son comes to me and says, Daddy, what is this climate change and why is it important to me? You understand? He or she is not going to be able to say to his child, this is what it means and this is how it works and this is what we ought to be doing. You understand? And this is why the government of the country, you understand, is preaching this thing. Because at the governmental level, and again, you understand, when you say things like that, people say, oh, you're criticizing Ralph and you're criticizing the government. You understand? All you're trying to do is to point out something that needs to be done. You understand what I'm saying? That is what you ought to do. Now, you're versed in this subject. Cian, did you become versed in this subject just like that? One morning you wake up and you're versed in climate change?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I know that. You were educated, you understand, informed, and you informed yourself further. Isn't that the case?
That is correct.
That is the case. You understand what I'm saying, right? And the mass of people in this country and across the Caribbean don't really understand what this thing means. You understand? So, you know, Cian, because you grew up in a Christian family, right? Your mother used to always teach you a basic principle: charity begins where?
At home.
You understand what I'm saying? So even in the preparation of our battles in this matter, for example, Godwin Friday, the leader of the opposition, is only in 2017. He said he realized that there's something called climate change. 2017, my brother. He said so himself. It's not me saying that, it's Godwin Friday say that. You understand? So what I'm trying to say is that we saw there, in my analysis, right? We saw about 5 major things happen. One is that the amount of money that science claimed is necessary to deal with this was not forthcoming. Okay? Just a trickle. That's the first. 2, the divide between North and South on this question is a glaring one. You understand what I'm saying? Because they had only offered, I think it was 100 billion they offered first year. And when they put it on the table, the whole place turned over. You understand? And so they had to withdraw it. You understand? Right? And add something onto it. You understand? So that's the second thing. The divide between these people, right, is glaring. That's the second thing that we know. The third thing that we know is that they don't really give a damn, and that's the word. They don't give a damn as to what is really happening as regards the states, the Caribbean states, the Pacific states, and so on, the African states, right? They don't give a damn because the plea has been going out not just from me, Motley, and Ralph Gonzalez, but from many others as well. And the storms and so on are there for us to see. So that's the third thing that we know. out of this. The fourth thing that we know, and probably this is the most crucial, is that you know what? The global south is not going to take it lying down. You understand what I'm saying? We are going to fight them. And that is, for me, was the most instructive part of it. The last thing, though, is the reconciliation of politics, economics, and science at that level. It is still not reconciled. You understand what I'm saying? Because if it had been reconciled, it is clear to me these people would have come to the table with a better offer. So those are my analyses from what happened at the climate change conference.
Okay. All right, Richard. Well, we didn't get to talk a lot about that, and I would, because we always talk about CARICOM. We know there's a CARICOM Community Climate Change Center in Belize, but I don't think they play a pivotal role in terms of negotiation and charting the a unified position forward for CARICOM. You know what I mean? But we will over time. It's already 10 o'clock, and so we had to bring the program to a close. But as always, Richard, thank you very much for your insights today. I did have a discussion with you earlier about the direction of the program. I'm still under advisement. I'm thinking about the discussion that we had before I made the announcement. And so I could say, hopefully, with your permission, that come next week, we'll be here again.
Yeah.
God's willing.
Yeah, most definitely. Sian, before you go, just 10 seconds. I think next week, Sian, we need to bring to the public's attention the war theaters that are going on now and what that could mean for civilians and the Grenadines. I think that's a very important subject.
So that's next week. All right, Richard. Until next week, Sunday, when we're back with you again with another exciting edition of Sunday Settie. This is Sian Marshall on behalf of Richard Byron-Cox saying, happy Sunday.
Sunday, all right.